Podcast titled The Boardroom Blueprint. Tagline: Insights into Corporate Governance, Board Leadership, and Ethical Business Strategy. Welcome to the Boardroom Blueprint, your insight into corporate governance, board leadership, and ethical business strategy. I'm your host, Sriram, your guide to better governance. Today's episode addresses a topic that has moved sharply to the center of modern corporate governance: regulatory scrutiny and board accountability. For many years, board oversight was viewed largely through the lens of collective responsibility. The board decided, the board approved, the board oversaw. But regulatory expectations have evolved. Today, regulators, investors, and courts increasingly examine the role of individual directors, especially independent directors. And the question being asked is no longer simply, what did the board decide? The question is now, what did each director know, question, and do? This shift has significant implications for independent directors. Let us begin with a fundamental tension in governance: personal liability versus collective responsibility. Boards operate collectively. Decisions are debated, refined, and ultimately approved as a group. Yet accountability is not always collective. When things go wrong, financial misstatements, compliance failures, risk breakdowns, governance lapses, regulators often examine the conduct of individual directors. Did they exercise due care? Did they ask the right questions? Did they challenge management when necessary? Independent directors cannot assume that collective decision-making automatically shields individual responsibility. Participation matters. Preparation matters. Challenge matters. The legal framework in most jurisdictions recognizes the concept of business judgment. Directors are not expected to predict the future. They are not expected to eliminate risk, but they are expected to demonstrate informed, good faith decision-making. This is where regulatory expectations become very specific. Regulators do not expect independent directors to manage the company, but they do expect them to exercise independent judgment, oversee risk, and ensure that management representations are tested, not simply accepted. Three expectations appear consistently in regulatory reviews. First, engagement. Directors must actively participate in board deliberations. Passive attendance is not governance. Second, inquiry. Directors must ask questions, particularly when issues appear inconsistent, incomplete, or overly optimistic. Third, documentation. Boards must demonstrate that their oversight was exercised diligently. This brings us to one of the most underestimated aspects of board accountability: documentation, minutes, and decision trails. Board minutes are not transcripts, nor should they be, but they must capture the essence of governance. They should reflect that issues were examined, alternatives considered, and risks evaluated. When regulators review board decisions, they do not sit in the boardroom. They examine the record. If the minutes show little discussion, little challenge, and little reasoning, it may appear as though oversight was minimal, even if debate actually occurred. Independent directors therefore should pay attention not only to decisions, but also to how decisions are documented. Key strategic decisions should record the information presented, key assumptions discussed, major risks considered, differing views expressed, and the rationale for the final decision. This does not require lengthy minutes. It requires clarity. A well-documented decision trail demonstrates diligence and strengthens the board's ability to defend its judgment. Which brings us to the next important concept: defending board judgment. In governance, outcomes do not determine whether a decision was responsible. A strategy may fail, an acquisition may underperform, a market may shift unexpectedly. Failure alone does not imply negligence. The critical question regulators ask is, was the decision reasonable based on the information available at the time decision was made? Independent directors must therefore ensure that the board's decision-making process is robust. Was sufficient information provided? Were assumptions challenged? Were risk scenarios examined? Were alternative options discussed? If the process was disciplined, the board's judgment is defensible, even if the outcome is imperfect. But if the process appears superficial, the decision becomes vulnerable. This is where independent directors add crucial protection to the governance system. Their independence allows them to raise uncomfortable questions without operational pressure. They can pause a decision. They can request additional information. They can ask whether the board is moving too quickly toward consensus. This role is not obstructionist, it is protective, for the company, for stakeholders, and for the directors themselves. One of the most dangerous phrases in governance is this: "I didn't know." In regulatory investigations, this statement rarely serves as a defense. Directors are expected to be reasonably informed. If information was available in board materials, committee reports, or management briefings, regulators may conclude that directors should have known. Even when information was incomplete, directors are expected to demonstrate that they asked for clarification. Independent directors must therefore remain alert to information asymmetry. Board packs can be dense. Technical information may be complex, but complexity does not eliminate responsibility. Directors must ask, is the information clear? Is it complete? Are we seeing the full risk picture? If the answer is uncertain, further inquiry is required. Another area receiving increasing regulatory attention is committee oversight. Audit committees, risk committees, and other board committees carry specialized responsibilities. Independent directors serving on these committees must ensure that oversight is substantive. Committee discussions should probe controls, internal audit findings, regulatory exposures, and emerging risks. And, importantly, committee insights must flow back to the full board. Siloed governance weakens accountability. Independent directors must also recognize that tone matters. Regulators often assess whether boards encourage open reporting, escalation of issues, and ethical conduct. If management feels discouraged from raising problems, governance risk increases. Boards must create an environment where bad news travels quickly, not slowly. Ultimately, regulatory scrutiny is not about intimidating boards. It's about reinforcing trust. Companies operate within complex regulatory ecosystems. Investors, employees, customers, and communities rely on boards to provide oversight that protects long-term stability. Independent directors play a vital role in maintaining that trust. Their independence is not symbolic, it is functional. They ask the questions that might otherwise remain unasked. They demand clarity where ambiguity exists. They ensure that governance processes are disciplined and transparent. Accountability is not about fear of liability, it's about stewardship. Strong boards recognize that regulatory scrutiny is a natural part of modern governance. Rather than resisting it, they strengthen their processes to withstand it. Because ultimately, accountability is not about defending past decisions, it's about ensuring that future decisions are made with integrity, rigor, and clarity. Thank you for listening to the Boardroom Blueprint. Lead with integrity and govern with purpose.